Hi everyone, I'm back, as you can see. I'm back from Japan, and as you can tell from my back home video, my small skit that I made, is that I do have a lot to catch on movies. So here I am, I'm back on making movie reviews and trying to catch on all the movies that I had missed during all these 3 weeks that I went to Japan. Yeah, we're back here in this room with the bird chirping up there, and also I have to tell you that I am very well aware that most of these reviews are gonna be about movies that are already come out here at the States, because when I was there in Japan, not all of these movies came out over there, and also I didn't have any time to watch it. There was some kind of chance, except for Godzilla, King of the Monster, which I already released, and also because I wanted to have the chance to watch the movie about the reptilian king of the monsters in its own home, despite being an American movie. Also, catching up is not easy. After I came back, I was only able to watch at least 3 of those movies that I just did. Mostly because I had to put things into order here, and also it didn't help that when I came back here, I just came out with a little bit of my low defenses on my immune system, and I got catch a little bit of the cold. It is a combination of that and also a little bit of the jet lag. So bear with me if you can hear me a little bit coughing, a little bit trying to keep my voice down, and also I had some drinks also. Yes, I got that in Japan. But anyway, there were a few movies that I was very interested to watch here in the States while I was in Japan. And one of those movies, I had the luck that I managed to catch up just in time before they remove it in the movie theaters that I wanted to go through. And that is none other than the pseudo Superman horror movie called Brightburn. Brightburn was one that I was anticipating ever since I saw the trailer, because basically, yeah, if I had to summarize the premise, it's basically that. It's just a twist on what happens if the Superman origin had a little bit of a horror vibe. To make it a little bit clear, the movie is technically about this couple who cannot bear a child due to infertility. The couple is played by Elizabeth Banks and David Denman. And then and just like the Superman origins, out from the sky, a pod falls and they adopt the child that was inside. And then the child is good. He's kind of like a genius. The child is played by Jackson A. Dunn. Yeah, IMDb here. And he's kind of like a precocious child. Technically, kind of like the Clark Kent vibe. But when he reached the puberty age with a 12-year-old, he began to feel that his body begins to change. He becomes kind of interested in not only in the things that most children do, like the opposite sex and all this stuff. He also begins to feel that he is getting too strong. He has kind of like power, let's say. So basically, again, he has the power of Superman. Super strength, super speed, kind of like an intelligence because the kid is kind of smart. But also apparently the hidden pod where he was there, it just kind of begins to bring him hidden messages. Out the car, kind of like that. Basically is kind of like if you see the original Superman movie, imagine that part of the origin of Superman. But again, let's put it a little bit of a horror vibe, and which I'll get through. But right at the get-go, I'll say that once I finish watching this film, I absolutely really like it. I absolutely like this film a lot than I can imagine. I know, and for a movie that it just only play the cards in the kind of in the way that you are familiar with if you are into the Superman mythos, and also as a guy who watch many movies, that you see a lot of familiar territory. This movie plays the cards very, very well. It might have a little bit of flaws here and there, but it is serviceable enough, I'll say. Alright, what else I can say? The acting in the movie is actually well done, I must say. The character that plays our Superman character, Jackson A. Dunn, even though the kid's name is called Brandon Brayer. Brandon Brayer is the name of the character, let's say. This kid acts really good. He is probably one of the best child actors I have seen this year. He kind of boasts in a way that he is, in a way, understandably sympathetic, but at the same time creepy, because just when he begins to act like a malicious sociopath, he is creepy in a way. You find that something is wrong, but a little bit if you see it on the other side, you kind of end up in a way sympathizing with him, and because sometimes it is not easy. It's kind of hard to sympathize with someone who is very, very different. But yeah, you sympathize with someone that feels that it's very special. But at the same time, this kind of throws it out of the window when you see that he becomes so indulged thinking that he's very special. He kind of becomes a little bit too too egotistical on about it, and the things that he later do, it kind of feels, and it also kind of unforgivable in a way. But at the same time, there is something that I must address, but I'll go with that later. Also, the parent, they kind of do a good job. Also, Elizabeth Banks kind of play like the very, very loving mother. It's kind of like if Martha Kent, she kind of becomes super loving, that she kind of wants to forgive everything for his son. And the father, David Denman, he basically also kind of acts like the good father, but a little bit, on his feet on the ground. And when he kind of begins to realize that there's something wrong with the kid, he just straight out says it, and he just tried his best. But you know that in many of these kind of movies, sometimes the mother's love wants to forgive almost everything. And you know what? This is kind of real, unless that kind of reminds me that sometimes the mother's love can also be a double-edged sword. If you remember my review of the movie Searching, and if you watch the movie Searching, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'll let you like that if you have. I'll leave it like that if you haven't watched the movie Searching. But keep in mind that sometimes a mother's love can be also not the best way to raise a child, let's say. And well, what else I can say about the movie? The pacing can be a little bit slow, let me say, because for a short movie, it kind of feels a little bit long. It takes a while to finally get to the meaty part, let's say. And I mean meaty because when finally the kid begins to act out on his sociopathic tendencies, and he finally begins to master his superhero powers, things get gory. Oh yeah, it is gore. It is gory as freak, I must say. And And it's kind of like you're watching a real superhero movie in which it's gonna take a while for the main character to finally grasp on its powers, and then finally, kind of like in the middle of the movie, the things get better and better because when you finally see where it's going. Oh man, that bird is getting noisy. Okay, what else I can say about this movie also that, oh yeah, for like I stated, this movie, don't expect too much about this movie because it's technically relatively low budget, and also I gotta admit that the costume of the quote unquote superhero costume is amazing. I love that costume. I really love that costume. And, well, I think that by far I will say that are some of the positives that I can say about this movie. A few of the negatives is that you're gonna find that there are a few plot holes that I can hardly remember how to explain. I will say, for example, it's never established. I mean, where the kid come from. Why it just came to the planet. It never established that, but I think that I can forgive that because I don't think that's the point of the movie. The point is that basically a dark twist to the Superman movie. If I have to go a little bit spoilerish, I will say that that basically the kid maybe goes back bad because the pod kind of begins to tell him so in alien language. And it is later revealed that the pod kind of tells the kid, "Take the world, take the world." And I found some reviewers saying that it doesn't construct the character by saying that, well, did the character just became evil just because the pod said so? In a way, yes and no, I'll say, because when the kid begins to establish some powers, he kind of becomes confused, let's say. And maybe the machine kind of gave him some kind of answer, let's say. It's technically also like that happened to Superman in the famous film, in which he's kind of confused, and when he finds Kal-El, he kind of finds this kind of like the best answer he can find. He can assimilate for him. I mean, but of course, in Brightburn, instead of having Kal-El saying, "You must protect your new home" and all this stuff, Kal-El is saying, "You must take the world." And from that point, the kid becomes even more creepier. He becomes more vengeful. He begins to kill people that make him even the least bit angry. And also, he get a knack watching. Well, it was revealed later that he also get a knack of not watching pornographic magazines, but then he kind of also had a fetish to gore. Here's something that is debatable that I don't know if any of you will agree with me or not, but I know that when the kid begins to act up, he begins to act very sociopathic, and I can agree with that. But in ways, like I said, there's some kind of hints that for some reason it made me sympathize with the bad guy or the kid himself, because one thing is that when the kid begins to act up, and even when he was in this, both when he was in a state of confusion until the way that he kind of embraced his evilness, kind of the people around him kind of began to act like jerks, I'll say. They began to they kind of started to look at him weirdly. They began to call him, let's say, to diss him like he's kind of like the odd one of the world, and I'll say, and so much that they even brush him up. Although in a way, it's kind of understandable. The girl that he had a crush on, it's understandable that she begins to mistrust him since he just kind of creep out on her room, and she just felt like she doesn't trust him, and of course that kind of leads him to breaking her breaking her hand and all this stuff. And from that point, things begin to degenerate little by little. Although, in kind of in a horror movie fashion, and some motherly love stupidity, they always want to blame it in something substantial like puberty in this case. Yeah, there was some points in the moment in which the Elizabeth Banks character should already put the pieces together that there's something wrong with the kid, and yeah, it was kind of like that. And I don't know, for some reason I felt that it looked cool when he began to act like Superman, let's say. But then we got the climax, in which the climax is, I gotta admit that it's kind of satisfying in my opinion. Because this is when things all break loose. So, you know what? I think I'm gonna put a little bit of a spoiler because it kind of bears talking about it. In this, so finally, the kid ended up killing the mother of the girl that he had a crush on. She was technically the first victim. And one thing that I forgot to mention is that the kid technically had while on his own free time, he had a knack of drawing his own costume and his own logo. A logo yeah, it's kind of like his name, Brandon Breyer. But imagine the two B's melding together, but one is in verse and the other one is not. Something like this. And yeah, he also designed this awesome costume that I actually really like. But then he also ended up killing one of his father's friend. Technically, I think it was his uncle, the kid's uncle. His death is probably one of the most gory of them all, and he died horribly, I'll say. Should I say how he died? No. I better let you shock how he died. And after also killing a few chickens, the kid begins to act also aggressive, very aggressive, and honestly, also during the whole movie, the kid, every time he commits his deed, he kind of wants to Clark Kent the hell out of it by saying, "No, I didn't do anything," and all this stuff. And mostly because probably the kid technically didn't want to worry his parents all of it, the things that he was doing. But then when all hell breaks loose, the father is like, "You know what? This kid is wrong, so I'm gonna take him to the forest and we're gonna go hunting. But when he's unaware, I'm gonna shoot him." Bad idea, because again, the kid is Superman. Bullets are resistant to him. And in a way, I thought that the father kind of deserved what he got. But then the kid kind of felt like, well, he's betrayed. He technically felt betrayed, and he decided to go all out against Elizabeth Banks. And yeah, we got the climax in which he disposed of two cops. And we find out that also the ship is the only means that can hurt him, because apparently the metal of the pod where he came from was also served as a kryptonite. But let me tell you, that's a red herring. It's basically a red herring that ends up, failing. And well, the kid kills everybody, and the movie ends with him kind of playing innocent. He's saved by many people, and it is revealed that the town that they live is called Brightburn. And the kid basically becomes, Superman. Superman, let's say. He becomes Superman, but instead of saving the world, he's destroying the world. He kind of becomes like a media sensation. And spoilers done. And that's all I have to say about Brightburn. Brightburn, I gotta say that I absolutely really like it, and it's really interesting to see how kind of like a dark take. One of the most beloved heroes there is. I like Superman. Don't get me wrong. I like Superman. There are times that they do kind of try to explore what will happen if Superman was evil. In this case, they didn't need it to just make it Superman. Just make it something that is similar to Superman in many ways. But imagine if there is this free will theory that that makes them have the right to choose their destiny. But at the end, I'll just say this: Brightburn is a million times better than Man of Steel. Ooh, take that, Zack Snyder.